Greetings, this is ADHD Focus, a show designed to bring the real story of ADHD to you. You can never know enough about ADHD, yours or someone else's. Today we'll explore how ADHD colors the world of people with it, what it's like to live with it. If you walk into a room to get something and get there, forget what you were looking for? Why is your spouse always late for appointments, no matter how many reminders or alarms she has set? Why does your son tell his sister at the dinner table to chew quietly? You're chewing too loud. Do you suddenly realize that you have no idea what the person you're talking to is talking about? To help us explore the answers to these and other questions, I have asked Rick Green of TotallyADD.com to join me. Rick, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here. Good to talk to you again. It's been a few years since we've seen each other in person, but we've, thanks to the internet, been able to do have some great fun, actually, at our annual Christmas party online. Last year, you were one of the 12 people who came through in 3 hours, and it was hysterical fun and fascinating and really interesting. I don't know how many hundreds of years of combined experience there were with all those guests, but it was great. So yeah, pleasure to be here.
Well, it's always great to have a chance to learn more and more about ADD and all the way it affects people. So, Rick, tell me a little bit about your diagnosis of ADHD and how that came about.
Good question. So I was going along, it was around the year 2000, and I had my own Y2K disaster in a way. My marriage had ended. My son was suddenly struggling in school and in a special gifted program, but just not doing any of the homework. And when we finally recognized that he'd been telling fibs to the teacher, or so, oh, I forgot it, or I left it, or whatever, it was probably a month into the semester. And what we realized is that he had, and now the class load had gotten bigger, heavier. There was actually homework, and he had no place to do it, no experience, he'd forget, and so on, no structure in place. And structure is huge for people with ADHD, so helpful, rather than rely on our memories. So anyway, they did some testing to make sure he was gifted, which he was, but they also discovered he had ADHD. And I looked at the list, being the now and then responsible father, and I thought, isn't this normal for everyone? My background is a skit comedy writer, an actor, a director, a producer. I looked at the list, and then I looked at the traits, and I thought, some of these have really helped me in my career, and other things have, other aspects, many of the aspects of ADHD in adults especially, have hindered me, have cost me relationships, have cost me financially, have cost me wear and tear, and years of my life having to do things over or whatever. So that constant feeling of underachieving. Anyway, the more I got the more I read, and I was voracious about this, the more it resonated, and the more I took on strategies and tools to deal with it, the faster it transformed. And the only fly in the ointment, I guess, was, well, there were two things. One was, I wish I had known sooner, because I watched the difference it made for my son to get the diagnosis and get the accommodations and the treatment that made this huge difference for him, and then for me as well. So like many people, I went through a, oh my God, this explains everything relief, and bounced around through the grieving process of anger, regret, if only, and so on. So that was one big thing. The other thing that really, I think, sort of fueled me forward to change my life focus, if you will, from doing comedy and the Red Green Show and all of the other shows that I'd done was the reaction to people around me who were dismissive of ADHD, who bought into all of the myths that are out there. And, you know, you've been dealing with it yourself, and I'm sure anyone listening to this is probably still buying into some of the myths or has had to deal with them themselves. And the anger I felt, the anger I felt, it threw me off for a while. And I know so many people who got a diagnosis, and all it took was some person saying, you shouldn't be taking those pills, or you don't need, there's nothing wrong with you, or, you know, why are you seeing this doctor even, or any of it, whatever they were doing, whether it was medication or anything, they stopped. And it cost them. And, and as I started talking about ADHD, and eventually produced a program called ADD and Loving It, and then a sequel, ADD and Mastering It, and now I think we have 17 or 18 videos on every aspect of ADHD on our website.
Your website is a wealth of information for anybody with ADHD.
And it's video, a lot of it's video, and that's so great because so many people have a learning disorder, a problem reading. And the other thing with video I find is it's one thing to wade through an article or a large book, but to sit and watch a video with a group, with your family, with your partner, or to be able to hand a DVD to the teacher and say, watch this, and have the teacher go, got it, or to your boss or whatever. So powerful. So yeah, it's been a really interesting experience. It was not one I expected. It was not where I expected to go, but I have absolutely no regrets because I know what we're doing is making a difference. And that's I guess the other thing about it is that what keeps us going forward, and you too, I'm sure, is the fact that there is so much that can be done.
Yeah.
That's, you know, if this was just a case of, well, you know, there's nothing we can do, you just take these pills one a day and you won't have these seizures or whatever it would be, right? That's one thing. But this is, there are so many different aspects, and it's so complicated. The causes are complex, and on and on.
Right. So many people, certainly that I see, have, as adults, they've adapted coping strategies and things, some of which they didn't even know were a coping strategy. Many people say, yes, I always have to have things in certain places so I don't lose them. Well, since people with ADHD often lose things, you get doing something else, you put it down, then you can't find the car keys. What kind of things are, I guess, surprises to you that have come up? Oh, that must be from my ADD.
It's a great question. It's on, you know what? It's ongoing. So at some point in the early days, I realized that this is why I had never, in 30 years of writing comedy, or however many it had been at that point, 25 years, I'd never finished a screenplay. I had tons of ideas, and I had ambitions. Boy, it'd be great to write a movie. And instead, I was a sketch comedy writer. It was, you know, 3-minute, 2-minute, 1-minute skit. And hugely successful at it. So that was a clue. I looked at all these great ideas, and rather than beating myself up about, you never get to these, what's the matter with you, it was like, yeah, I'm just not going to sit here for 6 months working on a script on the off chance that it'll get made, because movie scripts are notoriously hard to get made. And then what happens when you open up, your movie gets made and opens next to Star Wars episode 3006. So I could write a bunch of skits in one day, or funny articles, or whatever, and that's what I do. I can direct skit comedy. I can produce it and edit and all of those things. So I started to see where I was really successful and why, and I started to see where I really struggled: finances, paperwork, and organizing, and being able to allow other people to take part of a project and run with it, because I didn't know how to manage other people, let alone myself, all of those things. And then simple things like, more recently, last few years, it finally struck me as to why I didn't like going on Caribbean vacations.
Yeah.
And it's because the sand on the beach gets in everywhere. And we have a whole video on emotional and physical sensitivity, being very and overly sensitive. And you mentioned, you know, don't chew so loud. The sand everywhere drove me crazy. It was like fingernails on the chalkboard, which strangely enough doesn't seem to bother me as much. Once I understood what it was, we can now go on a Caribbean vacation or anywhere where there's a beach, and I just make sure I take a cup of water or whatever to rinse my feet off once I get to my beach chair. But it was that moment of, what is it specifically I don't like? And that was it. It was like, the sand. It's, you know, tags on my shirts and certain fabrics and all of those things that we go into in the video. That's a big one. And getting that and emotional sensitivity, overreacting. It's another thing where I just suddenly decided I'm not watching anything that has guns in it. which has cut me off from 90% of what's produced these days, it seems, at least for movies. But I never was a big fan of horror, and I don't watch stuff with guns because I just have this. I go, that guy just got killed, and the audience is laughing or cheering, and it's too much for me.
Yeah, I find I replay a lot of those violent scenes or things in my head, and it just really disturbs me and distracts me. And now I realize that's because of some of the emotional sensitivity that it keeps on grabbing me. Yep. Another area I think maybe unrecognized by parents is they'll say, well, he's such a picky eater. And it may not be that he doesn't like the taste of a given food, but the texture. My father was insistent, you're going to eat that soft-boiled egg. And I could see the wiggly stuff in there, and there was no way I was going to have that soft-boiled egg. And I still have to have my scrambled eggs dry, no wiggly parts.
Yeah, it's those little cherry tomatoes. Every time I bite one, I have this image of an eyeball popping or something. I don't know what. I can't eat them. And my wife still puts them on there, and I've learned, okay, just get through that initial pop, and you'll be fine. And I've learned to eat them. But again, for the longest time, I'd have had. Here's the thing about the diagnosis. Why you want to know? You have a better explanation. You have a better explanation for a whole bunch of stuff, other than lazy, picky, fussy, weak-willed, annoying, impossible, stupid, weird, bizarre, all of those things, flaky, all those things that we have been called, or worse, have called ourselves. You get a better explanation. Okay, I'm low on some neurotransmitters, and when they're up, here's what happens. I'm great. And when and so there were other things. Like I suddenly was clear why I couldn't really it was painful to have to sit down and do tax paperwork.
Yes.
But I could get up on stage in front of 2,000 people and be calm, clear, cool. That to me is those are the things where I go, okay, this is why.
Yeah, that when it's new or the pressure's on, you're in front of 2,000 people, that certainly boosts your adrenaline, and that helps that neural connections work better, which are the ones that help with focus and attention, so you can keep on going. But sitting down at tax forms does not do that. No, and what I found was interesting with medication was that I could sit down and do that, but you know what? I also realized it's not what comes naturally, and it's not what I should be doing with my time. So that was another thing. The diagnosis really gave me permission to hire a bookkeeper, and discovered, lo and behold, that it was way cheaper to hire a bookkeeper. I was paying less for the bookkeeper than I was in taxes for having my fines for having my taxes late. So what are some of the things that still, I guess, you run into that you wish medicine would take care of and it doesn't, that kind of get in your way?
It's interesting. So the challenges I still have is I want to do everything. I've actually just gotten off the phone an hour ago with my coach and setting up goals for the year, and we're already over a month into the year and working on the goals. That's fine because my year doesn't necessarily end at the same time, but it's like now we're setting goals for the new year. And so what happens is I list 1,000 things I want to do this year. And what I'm learning, and what the coaching has helped with, is those are things you want to do, but what's the goal? So the example that, like every year, I'm going to do yoga, I'm going to ride a bike, I'm going to do 300 sit-ups, whatever it is. None of those are really necessarily enrolling and exciting and attractive, especially when you're starting out doing any of those things. On the other hand, being fit and strong and having tons of energy, that's worth having. That's a goal that gets me interested. So one of the things that I really distinguished with the coaching, and why I think coaching is so good and so worthwhile for anybody, whether they have ADHD or not, but an ADHD coach when you have ADHD is even better because they get it. But having that the savings of time and now going, okay, this is the goal. How do I get there? Could be yoga, could be an exercise class, could be joining, going to a gym, and then being able to go, no, a gym will be overwhelming, and I'll find the trip there and the waiting my turn a waste of time. I'll get a video that I do in the living room or whatever.
Right, right. And I think that the key on those things, it's great to have this goal, and then, like you say, it comes down to, well, how do I get there? And my mind certainly goes to, then I've got to get something for my bike, and I need new shoes for my bike, and it's raining, I don't want to go. And so it's easy to make up all these excuses, or someone who doesn't exercise much, I'm supposed to go walk for 20 minutes. Just get your shoes out, put them by the door, and that's a good first step. And then go 5 minutes, 2.5 minutes out, 2.5 minutes back. Every day add a minute. Gee, a month later you're doing a 30-minute walk. And it's not that burdensome, whereas in the beginning if you think, I've got to go walk 30 minutes, I'll never be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's so true. And it's also, if you start walking and on day 3 and you're going 7 minutes and you're out there and you're going, it's like, you know what, I'm doing 10. And if the next day you forget, that's the other problem, because we can be all or nothing thinkers, black and white. The next day if you miss, it's so easy to go, I guess and then another day goes by. I'll start tomorrow. I'll wait till the weekend. I'll restart next Sunday. And another week, which is, again, why coaching and having structure around you is so important. And what you're talking about, putting the running shoes by the door or putting your briefcase at the front door, and your purse, whatever it is, so that you can't forget certain things. Having spots for things. The joke I always say is that you can go into anyone's house and say, you don't say, do you have cutlery? You assume they do, and all you have to say is, where is your cutlery drawer? Because everyone has a cutlery drawer. Not many people have a wallet drawer, a keys drawer, a wallet, keys, phone, EpiPen, whatever it is you need to take with you. They don't have a place for that. And so one of the things I did is we had this funky ashtray, really cool, on a stand, like it would be from an old, Agatha Christie movie or something, a classic thing out of the 30s, big marble thing. That became, by the front door, the place where I put my keys, my wallet, my phone, loose change, and anything else I needed. A pen and a paper I usually carry with me to jot stuff down. Now I don't, because the phone does all that. But all that stuff went in that one container right by the front door. Sure,
that I certainly find that adage, out of sight, out of mind, it applies. If I think, okay, I've got to remember this and this and this, I have to put it in front of the door. I have to go over it or pick it up to go out the door. Then I'm going to remember it. If I think, I was going to bring this, and it's not there, by the time I'm into getting ready and I've got to make sure I'm leaving on time, I've completely forgotten that one other thing I wanted to bring.
Yep.
The other thing, a lot of that certainly isn't in kind of the diagnostic scheme of things, that many, many people with ADD tell me there's just so much stuff in this room, the garage, whatever, but I might need it someday.
Yeah.
So it's so easy to accumulate these things, and all it takes is one time that you found a need for one of them that you've been holding on to 5 years. See, I knew it, and you hold on to all the rest. Absolutely.
Absolutely, and especially if you have kids, then you're holding on. Well, the kids somebody's going to need this office chair. And I counted at one point recently, I think we have 33 chairs, places to sit in the house, and I counted the couches, and all the folding chairs, because over the years when a television show was running in the same production company that I was working with, they had office equipment, and when the show ended, there'd be this whole big thing of office supplies. Well, they're just going to throw it in the dumpster. It was insane. So we also have, I think, again, I counted at one point, 11 or 12 staplers, because the production office, every year, they buy a new set of stuff, or another show would buy it, and they were going to throw this stuff out. What I've learned to do is to start, is to repurpose or give it away. Like, Nothing gets thrown out. So I don't know how many hundreds of books I've donated to libraries over the year, and we're now in the habit of, and we're working on this sort of a project for this year, is getting rid of everything that we're not using, because it's a long story, but we've lived in, we moved around a lot after we sold our house. Long story, but we ended up having 5 Christmases in 5 different houses in a row.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so stuff was in storage, stuff was in pods, stuff was there, then it had to be stored again, and so on. And it was madness, because we spent thousands on storage for furniture that, you could have replaced that at IKEA for $110 or whatever it was. So that's, what I have to remind myself is that there are stores out there and they will have these things. But I'm really getting into simplifying. And where I started with was clothing. Maybe because I'm not that concerned about how I appear, I don't know. But I started going through all of the clothes that I got, many of them really nice outfits for hosting various TV shows that I was on. One I did called History Bites. Every year I got 2 new suits, but I didn't like some of them. Mm-hmm. But I hung on to them because they're $600 or $700 or $800 suits. I don't know. Yeah. The show paid for them. I got it free. It would be. Now it's like, you haven't worn it in 9-10 years. Somebody else could have been wearing it, and that's really how I like the amount of clothing on the hangers now is probably close to half of what it was 3 months ago. My kids got some, and the rest is donated.
Mm-hmm. And very much like at a minute of walking every day, people might walk into the closet and say, I can't sort through all this stuff. I don't have time. You know what? Give away one thing a day. Just one. All you have to do is pick one thing. Think, I really haven't worn this jacket for years. So I'm going to give it away so someone else can use it. I think that incremental approach, instead of looking at things in this huge, big picture, all I've got to do, because that becomes overwhelming, and overwhelm is certainly an issue with ADHD. What do you find, or how do you cope with things where you have a transition? You just come back from vacation. So for 2 weeks, you've been out of your routine of things. How do you get back into that routine?
That's really interesting. So the tendency or the feeling is you want to immediately get started and get doing something. So it does require some stopping, pausing, and thinking. It requires probably less than I'm afraid it will. But I use a lot of different tools to organize, and when they stop working, I stop using them. I've also So to get into the transition, I make notes before we go. I have a clear list of what we're supposed to do when we come back, and I work with the coach. That helps. The bigger transition, I think, for me, is the challenge in transition is switching from doing one thing to doing something else. So today, for example, I was writing a bunch of scripts for videos on the website that we've got going, and I'm reworking some of the scripts. And knowing that I had a coaching call and knowing I was going to be doing a podcast with you, it was hard at some points to stick with it because I got to remember these things. But I had a timer to go to remind me. The other thing that would happen is a couple of people who are involved in the field of ADHD sent us emails arrived saying, we're doing this special workshop for parents. Can you promote it through your newsletter? And somebody sent us a bunch of pictures for our Friday Funnies. If you go to our website, you can subscribe to our Friday Funnies, and every Friday you get a whole bunch of hilarious memes about ADHD and so on. Anyway, so it's very hard. Like I had to stop and go, should I put this up now? Well, it's not till next week. I can wait. And it went onto the whiteboard behind me. It's not in my vision. And I scheduled it for a specific day tomorrow, in fact, for that. But that's the hardest thing, is to know when to transition, when to check in with emails about, because I'm working with people on the scripts themselves, so I have to check now and then to see the pro. All of those things, it's the switching between. Now, working at home, which we do right now, But I've worked in, production companies and so on, but writing mostly is at home. That's the nice thing, is there are very few distractions if I don't want them. I don't have people, it's not an open concept office, which is murder for people with ADHD, for some anyway. An open concept classroom, murder for a lot of kids with ADHD.
Right.
That's why so many ADHD kids, one of the simplest accommodations we talk about in our videos about going to school and about going to college, about JK to 12 and then on to college and university, those two videos. One of them is simply sitting near the front of the class. So and it's interesting, I look back and I go, the classes I was interested in, I deliberately sat at the front at university. When it wasn't interesting, I was at the back of the room, and it had nothing to do with how hard it was. In fact, the harder courses were often more interesting.
Well, Rick, it's about time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
My guest has been Rick Green of the website TotallyADD.com and many other projects. I hope we've explored some of the key issues around what it's like to live with ADD. Certainly, TotallyADD.com explores and answers many of these in great detail, and I would recommend it as a great resource for anyone with ADHD.
Thanks.
So,
it's one of the top doctors at the University of Pennsylvania told me, he said, we send our patients or clients to two places that we recommend, the National Institute of Mental Health and Totally ADD. And
absolutely.
I thought, wow, that's kind of neat.
Well-deserved kudos. Thank you, Rick, so much for joining me.
And thanks for doing this.
Okay, there you have it, another part of the real story about ADHD. This is your host, Dr. David Pomeroy, and until next show, be well.